When you support your local small businesses, it helps keep your neighbors employed, helps kids save for college, and strengthens your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts local businesses in the spotlight.
First Bank of Sea Isle City, Cape County's community bank.
Dr. Lyle M. Back for everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery. Go to ilovelyle.back.com.
Egg Harbor Independent Branch Leader at Charles Schwab in the Consumer Square Shopping Plaza.
Filling Marble and Tile Outlet, Philadelphia Avenue and Route 30 in Egg Harbor City. Visit fillingmarble.com.
Intuitive Women's Health in Summers Point, accepting new patients. Schedule an appointment today online at intuitivewomenshealth.net.
East Coast Roofing, Siding and Windows, services all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Call East Coast today at 609-646-1444. Online at eastcoastroofing.com.
Thank you for supporting your local businesses. From Town Square Media, South Jersey.
South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Well, something to think about, for sure.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We are live in the Matt Black Kia Studios. Right, Matt Black Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. Sixers taking another shot at getting the number one seed tonight. We'll talk with Kevin McCormick all about it coming up at 6:20 tonight. We'll get into it with Kevin right here on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers in Miami trying to lock it up. Who's actually playing tonight? That's another question we'll have to get into because Jimmy Butler is questionable to play tonight, so he might not even be out there. We know that Joel Embiid, he's been out with this non-COVID related sickness. So there's a lot to keep track of with this game tonight. Who actually is or isn't playing. We'll get into all with Kevin McCormick coming up right here at 6:20. But we also got to get into the Eagles. The schedule is now official. If you haven't seen it, you can go over to 97.3 ESPN.com and see the full breakdown of the schedule. And for me, there were three major takeaways from this schedule when it dropped last night officially. As a side note, I did think it was hilarious that almost every NFL team, it looked like, released their schedule before the 8 p.m. primetime special. So if for whatever reason you didn't want to watch the special last night, you didn't need to. Why do you need to sit around for 3 hours for a schedule release when you can just get it online? Like at 973 ESPN.com. I mean, we had that thing up before the end of that show last night. We had that thing up within minutes of it coming out officially. So anyway, three things I took from the schedule last night. We're going to get into that right here. Of course, don't forget you can text in the show if you're listening on 97.3 ESPN FM or on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. 609-403-0973 is the text board. 609-403-0973 to get in on the conversation. By the way, a little Joel Embiid update. Doc Rivers says Joel Embiid is in Miami and trying to go tonight. Doc says it's a maybe if he will play. That's an interesting update right there for you. So, also don't forget we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show with yours truly, Josh Hennig, here on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you follow 97.3 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter to watch the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, as well as yours truly, Josh Hennig, each and every night here on 97.3 ESPN. So a little timely news with the Sixers before Kevin McCormick joins us coming up at 6:20 p.m. Joel Embiid is in Miami. He will try to play tonight. Big news for the 76ers as they go and try to lock up the number one seed tonight, 7:30. All the action right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. All right. My three main takeaways from the Eagles schedule that dropped last night. My first takeaway above anything else, I am very much not a fan of this bye week. Week 14 is the bye week. You got to wait all the way until that late in the year for a bye week. Oh man, that's a bad omen right there. If something goes wrong this year, if there's a serious couple injuries, or Jalen Hurts doesn't play as well as we think he can, or Nick Sirianni's in over his head, you're playing 14 weeks straight with no reprieve, no bye week, nothing. And you could argue that the Eagles' most difficult stretch of games is all in those first 14 weeks. Because after the bye week, all you're doing is playing the NFC East. After the bye week is just Washington, the Giants, Washington, Cowboys. That's it. So literally, it's the NFC East games after the bye week. Before the bye week, there's a stretch of games on this schedule that, I mean, if you're thinking straight, it's going to make you cringe a little bit, right? Because think about it this way. Starting on September 27th, all the way until you get to, I mean, if you want to stretch it out, it's through the Raiders game, okay? It's this stretch of games that really stood out to me. Week 3 versus the Cowboys. Week 4, so it's at the Cowboys for week 3. Home against the Chiefs in week 4. At Carolina week 5. Week 6, Thursday night football, short week coming off of a road game back home versus Tampa. Yikes. And then week 7, you go back on the road after coming home for the Thursday football game, and you play the Raiders. Yikes. That's going to be an interesting stretch of games. And things lighten up a little bit after that. Lions, Chargers, Broncos, Saints, Giants, Jets, bye. But your heaviest part of the schedule, where you are hitting the road 3 out of those 5 games, and there's a Thursday night game in the middle there. You're starting with a Monday Night Football game. That's a tough stretch. So having week 14 that late in the year and having that stretch of games early in the year, I'm not getting the good feels about that, because you got to look at a game-by-game basis in the NFL. It's a week-to-week proposition. And I think the Cowboys will be better than they were last year. I mean, the Chiefs just acquired Mike Hughes, so their depth at cornerback has gotten better. I think Carolina is a tough out. They may not be a great team, but they're a tough out. They're a tough team to play. Matt Rule's got those guys playing hard down there. Tampa, defending Super Bowl champs. And then you got to go to Las Vegas, to a stadium that no one has ever played in before on this Eagles team, basically. And we don't even know what the situation is with the fans out there. Are they half capacity, full capacity? There's a lot of conflicting reports coming out of Vegas. So, yeah, I mean, I would assume that there's going to be Eagle fans there. How much of the stadium do they take up? Is it more like a home game than a road game? But it's still a road game. They still got to travel. It's still 4:05 Pacific time. Coming off of a Thursday night game, so you're going to have about 10 days. It's just a tough little situation to go through on the schedule. So that's a couple of things I took away. The third thing I took away from this schedule is this is going to be one of those seasons where you're going to start out probably not great, and you're going to finish up very well. Because, as I said, the gauntlet of games is early in the year. At the Falcons, home against the 49ers. At Dallas, home against Kansas City. At Carolina, home against Tampa. But then after that, it's at the Raiders, home against the knee-biter Lions. at the Lions, two straight road games. Back home against the Chargers, and you travel back out to Denver to play the Broncos. Back home against the Saints. This might be a situation where you're going to see some growing pains. Now, Adam Kaplan was on Football at 4 with Mike Gill earlier today on the Sports Bash and brought up a very, very poignant point about the Eagles can have success despite the early returns on this schedule.
Quite frankly, I look at the teams that they're playing. I count 7 games that are severely winnable. Giants twice, Jets, Atlanta, Carolina, Raiders, Detroit. Then Chargers actually 8. And then they're going to have to find ways to steal a couple games if they want to be in the playoff on it.
So this, as Adam outlined, can be a 7 to 8 win team. I tend to agree because I think that I'm not saying they're going to beat the Falcons week 1, but he's right. It is a winnable game because Atlanta's defense is just poor. I think the 49ers are going to be a tough game because they're going to be, if they're healthy, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. Cowboys at Dallas. It's a winnable game, but it's going to be tough because it's going to be Dak Prescott under center and not Ben DiNucci. Chiefs, it's probably a loss. Andy Reid, first game back in Philadelphia. Come on. At Carolina, he's right. It's a winnable game. It's a very winnable game. Bucks, not so much. So there are games on this schedule where you're like, hey, you could beat that team. Hey, I'm not beating that team. But this is a 7 to 8 win team. Then I ask you the question, are they overachieving? Because currently the lines, depending on what book you go to right now, the odds makers are saying this is a 6 or 6.5 win team, according to the lines. So if the Eagles are 6.5 on the win total, and you have a chance to win 7 to 8 games, possibility you can go over. Now, Mike Gill put out the Twitter poll question earlier today at 973 ESPN. And I'll pop this up in front of me here to get the latest detail. So 6 of the last 9 teams that enter the season with the schedule that was based on last year's records as the easiest strength of schedule made the postseason. Will the Eagles make the playoffs? And right now it's 45.2% say yes, 54.8% say no. And I think that's an incredibly honest ratio because there's variables that we don't know about. There's variables that go into this that I think we have to consider. If the offensive line is healthy, if Jalen Hurts plays the way that he is expected to, if Sirianni coaches up the players in a way that we think he can in developing these guys, then this team definitely can win 7 to 8 games. If they get a competent cornerback across from Darius Slay, whether it's Steven Nelson or whoever, they can win 7 to 8 games. Notice I'm not saying this is a playoff team. If you asked me to rank the teams right now in the NFC East, I'm probably saying the Eagles are the 3rd best team in the division. I think the Giants' quarterback situation is going to hurt them in the long term. You can acquire all the wide receivers you want. I mean, they just signed Benjamin, for goodness sake. I mean, they're just collecting receivers over there. They signed Galladay. They drafted Tony. They already have Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. You got like 1 million receivers over there now. So you can have all the receivers you want, but the quarterback can't get the ball to him and the offensive line doesn't hold up. What's the point? So I kind of have to wonder with the Giants, how good are they really going to be? That's how I look at the Giants. So to me, I think the Eagles can be better than them. The question really is, can the Eagles compete with Washington and Dallas? That's the thing that's going to be told. But the more and more I look at this schedule, I realize that this is a winnable schedule for sure. One more thing I want to take away from the schedule is the lack of primetime games. Only 2 primetime games on the entire schedule. I think that it's a very interesting side note to realize that the Monday night is in week 3 at Dallas. The Thursday night is in October at Tampa. When we get later in the schedule, I would not be surprised if the Eagles are somewhere around 500. If, for example, any of those games like the Saints game or the Giants game or in the back half of the schedule, Washington and Dallas, if any of those games get moved around a little bit, because we know that people tune in to watch NFC East games. When that division was a train wreck last year, people still tuned in to Sunday Night Football to watch the train wreck nationally. So if the NFC East is in question, I can almost guarantee you that at least one of those games at the end of that schedule is going to get flexed. And the Eagles are going to be on primetime. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we are live in the Matt Black Kia Studios here on 97.3 ESPN. Game Night being brought to you by my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. One of the things I love about betting basketball on FanDuel Sportsbook, just like you do with the Sixers tonight versus the Heat here on 97.3 ESPN, you can take player props and game props and combine them together in the same game to get an even bigger payout on a small wager. It's called a same game parlay. You can only find them on FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook or you use FanDuel every single day, you should check out NBA same game parlays daily. Same game parlays are just another reason why I love FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Their app is simple to use with exclusive, always on promotions to let you get more action out of every game, plus different deposit options so you know your dollars are safe. If you haven't tried FanDuel Sportsbook yet, new users get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's right. Just place a bet and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back in site credit if you don't win. So download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, sign with my promo code Hennig to get your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play in President NJRPA. First online real money wager only for risk-free bet. Refund issues, non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Joel Embiid's in Miami, but will he play tonight? Kevin McCormick will talk about it with us next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Coming up on the next edition of Greeny with Mike Greenberg.
When we get to Thanksgiving is when the NFC East race begins. The Cowboys, 3 of their last 4 are in the division. The Eagles, their last 4 are in the division. Washington, their last 5 games are in the division. It is incredible. They're just playing each other in December and into January.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekdays from 10 to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
On some models excludes Corvette with GM financing. Excludes prior sales. See dealer for details.
Many car dealers all around the area are having trouble getting inventory, so they're jacking up prices big time. But at Bennett Chevy, we haven't changed a thing. Why would we? You said you love our GM supplier employee pricing. You pay what our supplier employees pay, not a penny more. Bennett also gives you all the rebates, which can add up to a whopping 25% off MSRP. Plus, Bennett's got available 0% financing that'll save you thousands more. Looking for used? Good news. Bennett's still paying a minimum $7,000 for any trade you bring us, regardless of condition or miles. Any old Heath is worth a minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. And our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend, so there's no pressure ever. And Bennett Chevy is now an authorized lease return center for all brands. So now more than ever, there's just no beating Bennett. Find new roads at Bennett Chevrolet, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers back in action tonight. Take you on the Miami Heat. You hear the coverage right here starting at 7:30 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN. Our Sixers pregame coverage being brought to you by Trifecta Therapeutics in Glassboro, South Jersey's premier sports rehabilitation and physical therapy center, treating the pros and the Joes. Visit them online at trifectatherapeutics.com. Kevin McCormick joining us right now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline here on 97.3 ESPN as Joel Embiid has snuck down to Miami. He is in the building working out. Will he play tonight? I don't know yet. We're going to find out all together now. But Kevin McCormick, with all the further details, joins us right now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline by who actually is playing and not playing tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, how you doing tonight?
Josh, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So obviously the biggest news of the game tonight is Joel Embiid is in the house. He's in the building. Will he play or not? He's basically questionable. But I got to say that I'm a little surprised he snuck into Miami with nobody knowing about it until Doc Rivers mentioned it. Like usually this stuff kind of leaks out to somebody like, hey, by the way, Joel Embiid's in town or Joel Embiid got there. And I didn't know anything until Doc Rivers said, oh yeah, by the way, Joel's here. You're like, really? What?
Who would have thought that in 2021 people would still be able to sneak 7-foot athletes down the coast? But here we are, even in a pandemic. But I mean, who knows? It's definitely a promising sign. I feel like even if it was 50-50 that Joel wasn't going to play, that they wouldn't really necessarily make him make a trip. So I think the fact that he's down there and he's working out is a very positive sign. Doc Rivers said he did work out yesterday. He said he didn't look incredible, but he was still able to get up and down the floor. So it feels like it's going to be another one of those. They're going to try and get him through warm-ups and see how the body feels after that. And then maybe potentially we see him make his return.
I think also you have to wonder, because we don't know the details of what he was sick with, that this could have been a short-term thing anyway at the end of the day. So, but hey, if he does play, it makes a huge difference because the Sixers, they need to win one game. They need to win one game and they get the number one seed. So, how do you feel that the Sixers going into this game tonight, knowing they could have won the Pacers game, but they shot so horribly in the Pacers game? You could argue that maybe if they made a couple more threes, maybe they win that game.
That is definitely true. That game was really just a tale of two halves, to put it lightly. They had a commanding lead in the first half. Ben Simmons was looking incredible. We saw him knocking down multiple jump shots. Then everything pretty much came to a screeching halt at halftime. And you're not going to win a game in the NBA when you can't break 20 points in the third or fourth quarter. It's just one of those. It is what it is. I mean, half the rotation was out, including Joel Embiid. You were also missing guys like Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, Matisse Thybulle, to where even though they're role players and it might not seem like their impact is great, that's still 75% of your bench rotation. So having to fill in with guys like Isaiah Joe and Anthony Tolliver and Mike Scott on the fly definitely isn't the best of situations. And it makes me wonder even more why they had Joel Embiid make this trip, because maybe they're looking at the viewpoint of they saw how rough things got against Indiana, and maybe they're just going to try really hard to clinch the 1 seed tonight. So that way they at least have these 2 upcoming games to get some added rest along with next week.
When you also look at this game tonight, is also part of the question going into this game as well, not just about Embiid, but about how many minutes he would play, because we know in the past they've called it, old school load management, where the idea is we're not sitting guys, but they're not playing the full allotment of starter minutes.
That's pretty much the perfect situation for the Sixers now. Obviously, they had that whole week where they had some nice blowout wins and were able to get people off their feet early. And Tobias Harris actually touched on this a little bit recently of kind of trying to find that perfect balance of rest versus rhythm, and he talked about how rhythm is very important. And I think for a starting 5 that's had to learn on the fly all year, anytime they can get on the floor together as a group, they should make the most of it. And guys like to play themselves into shape. They like to maintain that routine. Athletes are known for being creatures of habit. So having that added time off, it could mess up their rhythm and could be out of sync. And in a potential playoff series, you don't really want to be playing yourself back into sync on the start. You want to go in on the right foot. So from that sense, obviously the old school load management of getting your stars in there early, let them, get their feet wet, get a nice sweat and get some shots up in a live situation, but then also be able to get them off their feet early so you can still get the rest in. Because as we know, going into the playoffs healthy still remains the top priority for this team.
Kevin McCormick joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 at ESPN at Kevin MCC NBA for your Sixers and NBA coverage. Sixers Heat tonight at 7:30. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, another guy who's questionable tonight is Jimmy Butler. There's a possibility he might not be on the court, which would be a big deal for the Sixers because obviously it's a lot easier to beat Miami with their best player. So, what is your expectation for the Heat with or without Butler tonight?
Well, based off what we know, nobody wants it more than Jimmy Butler, and nobody tells people that Jimmy Butler works hard more than Jimmy Butler. So I feel like a situation like this, where he has a golden opportunity to stick it to one of his former teams, kind of leans me towards the fact that he's going to play. And outside of just his personal vendetta personality, there's also the playoff implication for Miami as well, although when looking at this matchup, it gets flexed to national television for the reason of Philadelphia potentially clinching the 1 seed, but Miami's another team who still has a chance to seal their playoff fate. This is a game that has a lot of interesting kind of twists and turns to it when you dive deeper into the web, because Miami is only a half game out of the 4 seed right now. So they're a team that's also trying to win. And then looking on the opposite end, if the Sixers are able to beat Miami, not only do they clinch the 1 seed, but they could potentially move Miami down to 6 and let the Knicks jump back ahead of them, essentially taking them out of a playoff series of having to meet Miami in the second round. So although it's one of those, stealing your playoff fate of your own seeding, this also gives the Sixers a chance to not only clinch that 1 seed, but kind of make their way to the Eastern Conference Finals a little easier as well.
One of the things also interesting about this game tonight is the fact that it's in Miami. This is going to be a situation where maybe if this was a game in Philadelphia, you feel a little differently about it, right? You have a little perspective on it, but it being in Miami, quote unquote hostile territory. I don't really think the Miami fans are going to be
hostile territory in the second quarter when the fans finally show up, but
right. Well, that's what I was going to get. Miami fans are not exactly hostile to say the least. They're more there for a good time, not the team. So listen, listen, I'm not hating on Heat fans. Let's be realistic. Heat culture is a cult of a select group of fans. Okay. It's not the predominant fan base. So, but still, Miami's a very good team. And as you mentioned, they're playing for something. And I have to wonder going into this game, whether Embiid plays or not, does that affect at all with Doc Rivers of the rotations? Because after what he saw happen in Indiana, saying, hey, we tried some things, certain things worked, certain things didn't. Now we're going to make that adjustment for this game.
it has to play a factor. Seeing how that second half went down and how desperately they just needed to find offense from somewhere definitely has to play a huge factor in Joel Embiid making this trip to Miami. Because, like I said at the top, this is a Sixers team they're trying to just seal their fate, trying to make things easy to where you can just kind of kick your feet up for these last two games against the Orlando Magic to cruise through the end of the regular season. And it feels like this is a matchup that they're going to play hard. So, we've talked about the lack of competition through the end of this schedule with playing against teams that aren't competing anymore, playing against teams that are resting multiple players or have multiple injured players. This is a chance for the Sixers to not only have a live showing in a game and live interaction against the opposing team, but also a chance to have a little bit of some playoff atmosphere, something that we haven't said much of towards the end of this regular season. So I think that plays a factor as well. Just all the implications, what the atmosphere is going to be like. Maybe Doc, if he has the chance to get Joel on the floor, maybe he gets him on there just to kind of prep him for what that playoff atmosphere is going to be like, get him in a nice, tough matchup for this group as a whole, figure out ways that they're going to generate offense against playoff teams. So it definitely bodes well for that.
Now, the Heat, they are currently 38-31, tied with the Knicks. They have the 5 seed. The Knicks have the 6 seed. They're one game behind, well, actually half a game behind the Hawks, who are right ahead of them. So the Heat are obviously playing for some positioning, some seeding right now. And the Heat also present one interesting conversation to me, Kevin, which is when I look around the Eastern Conference, I think that there's really only one guy that I really have any concern about versus Embiid in a playoff series, and that's Bam Adebayo. Not because Bam's the best defender in the league, but because he's arguably the most freakishly athletic and skilled of all the big men in the Eastern Conference. And that, if the Sixers had to face him in a postseason series, could present some interesting challenges for the Sixers.
I think there's some truth to that. He's obviously not the most versatile defender on the floor in this matchup because that goes to the Sixers' Ben Simmons. But the way I look at it is I'm actually a very big Bam guy. I think he's a very underrated star in this league. I think he's going to continue to grow. I agree with a lot of what you say of when you look at last postseason and what he was able to do against Giannis, he's shown that he can defend star talent that's even bigger than him, as he could be kind of viewed as a small ball center. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about Joel Embiid, this was a guy that before he went down was the MVP of the league, most dominant player, most dominant center. He was pretty much sleeping his way to 30 and 10 every night. I just feel that Joel Embiid is just in a mindset and in a groove right now that he has it in his head that whoever the opposing team puts in front of him, he's going to bulldoze them. He's going to get what he wants. And he finally understands that he can take over a game the way he wants instead of having to play through what's going on, and no matchup can really contain him.
By the way, a little bad news for the Heat. They just announced that Trae Young, Clint Capella, Bogdanovich, and Danilo Gallinari are all clear to play tonight. So the Hawks are at full power for their game tonight. So if the Heat were hoping to maybe sneak one past Atlanta tonight, better luck next time, kids. So, so that's a little bad news for the Heat. I'm not saying it's going to change how they play tonight, but at least, maybe they were hoping, because there were a lot of reports out there that all 4 of those guys were going to miss the game tonight. And now instead, the Hawks have a chance to really pull away from the Heat because they are playing the Magic. By the way, the Hawks had the best 2 games at the end of the season, do they not? They got the Magic and they got the Rockets. Both games are at home. I mean, if any team is going to win out their schedule, it's got to be the Hawks, right?
The Sixers have a 2-game series with the Magic to end the season. So
yeah, it's a home series. So it's like,
maybe, but I mean, it's tanking teams are tanking teams. At this point, the team I want to play is OKC. They're pretty much giving out handshakes and fruit baskets when you do the job for them and let them take another loss in the loss column.
Well, as long as you give them a draft pick, they're good with it. So
yeah, as long as you slide Sam Presti a second-round pick or an overseas draft stash, he'll gladly do the job for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He'll take the L on the resume. He don't care. I mean, now of course the Rockets are a different situation. The Rockets, they're a dumpster fire because they're just a dumpster fire. Whereas OKC, they're purposely tanking to hit the reset button for the future with about 2 million draft picks to work with for the next 20 years. So. It's 2 really different situations. I think on principle though, I would like the Rockets just because I feel like they're just a walking trail. I mean, I feel so bad off Sixers topic. I feel so bad for Steven Silas. That dude gets that job. He's endorsed, by the way, by Harden and Westbrook to get the job. Then all of a sudden, both guys don't want to be there anymore. He's got to deal with that fiasco. His team is falling apart at the seams. They become a dumpster fire. They dump half the good players throughout the season. Now he's playing out the string on a team that he thought was going to be competitive when he got the job. And now he's on a team that is arguably as bad as the 10-win Sixers team.
It's pretty much just malpractice from top to bottom. I don't understand how you trade a former MVP, a guy who finishes atop the league in scoring and passing every year, has a couple years left in his prime. And even earlier this season, the debate came around that James Harden was potentially working his way into the MVP conversation. And the best piece you get out of trading a player like that is Kelly Olynyk. Like, what? Who was in that boardroom when all that was being discussed? When names like Tyler Hero were being thrown around, even though he's already at 20 years old being thrown into the overrated conversation. They could have Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle, and they got Kelly Olynyk. They decided to give up, even when they had made the trade with Brooklyn. Jared Allen gets sent away. Karis LeVert gets sent away for Victor Oladipo, and then you trade Victor Oladipo for nothing. I don't understand how you trade a player as phenomenal as James Harden and walk away with nothing when you look at the previous superstar trades that we've seen in the past 4 years. I mean, like, look at what the Pelicans got for Anthony Davis. The fact that when you look at a trade like that and then you see the end result of the Harden trade, when Harden was arguably in a better position in terms of upper echelon of superstar than Anthony Davis was at the time, right. It's laughable. I really want to know what the thought process was going on in that boardroom when they were going through the James Harden trades.
Yeah, I mean, the only person who's happy to not be in Houston right now is Karis LeVert because his medical scan revealed that issue he got taken care of. Absolutely. But aside from that, if you would have walked out of that deal, if you were Houston with Karis LeVert and Jared Allen, I think most of us would have been like, all right, guys, good job. You got two young, talented players. And like you said, they walked out of it at the end of the day after multiple trades with Kelly Olynyk and draft picks. Like it just feels like you just imploded for the sake of imploding at that point.
Yeah, there isn't any thought process of other than just completely burning it to the ground and figuring out how you're going to rebuild it, years down the line, because there is no set clear path of what the next phase of the Houston Rockets are going to be outside of Kevin Porter Jr. showing some nice flashes here and there, but minimal assets, no real young star to build that next phase that you could have had if you kept a Karis LeVert, if you kept a Jared Allen, and it just doesn't make sense at all. Nothing about it, the way any of it went down, makes any sort of sense.
And by the way, the second most bizarre thing of the NBA today is that Dwayne Casey got a contract extension. How about that? I mean, the guy's got the second worst record in the league, but it's like, hey, here's a contract extension. Like, I mean, that one was a little weird.
He's just becoming one of the most bizarre coaches in NBA history. He wins Coach of the Year, gets fired, goes to Detroit. They have a miserable season, and now he's getting an extension. If I'm Dwayne Casey, I mean, I don't even know what to do at this point. If the bad season gets you the extension and Coach of the Year gets you fired,
his agent is, I need him. That's what we found out.
Or Mason Plumlee's. Mason Plumlee has committed highway robbery on multiple NBA franchises now in the contracts he's gotten. So whoever his agent is, I would like his phone number and at least a 15-minute chat.
Mozgov's agent's pretty good too.
Oh, anyone from the summer of 2016. Luol Deng? Like anybody.
Luol Deng made sense. He was at least an all-star. Like Mozgov had 6 games. He got a contract on 6 games. That's the equivalent of Matt Flynn in the NFL getting that big contract after he had 1 game for the Packers. Mozgov had a series and got $60 million. It was incredible.
Evan Turner that summer got close to $80 million. That just whole summer and that cap spike made just absolutely no sense. But I agree. A lot of those agents somehow were able to get the job done.
It's absolutely wild. All right. One more NBA thing before I let you go. I'm starting to be more and more convinced that the Nets are cursed because James Harden looked incredible last night, but no Kyrie Irving because he got smacked in the mouth the game before. So I'm convinced that this is just not the Nets' year, and everyone just needs to own it because of the fact that people want the Nets to be the favorite because they play video games. Okay, listen, I don't know if this team's going to be healthy. I'm thoroughly convinced that every time a guy gets healthy, like Durant got healthy, then Harden got hurt. Harden gets healthy. Now Kyrie has some mysterious facial injury. That's not a concussion, but they won't tell us what it is. So to me, there's no way the Nets are winning the NBA championship. I don't think they're getting to the NBA finals. I think they're getting knocked out by the Bucks in the second round. I think the conference finals are going to be Sixers and Bucks for all the marbles. Your response?
It's almost laughable at this point. It really starting to feel like they're just playing a prank on the NBA of they just don't want to show their hand. I said this to Paul Hudrick like a month and a half ago. This crazy conspiracy theory that they're doing it on purpose because they don't want teams to have film on them. And the more stuff like this happens, I hope Paul's listening and laughing somewhere, but the more that stuff like this happens, the more I really start to believe it. It, like you said, it doesn't make sense. They'd have to be cursed. Like, this is literally some of the worst luck we've ever seen. And this is coming from a Sixers franchise who has gone through the Embiid injury, through Fultz forgetting how to shoot, through you name it. They've gone through so much turmoil and stuff that could be considered as cursed. And now this Brooklyn team is just injury after injury and never getting the chance to see their stars at full health. But I still stand on the hill of I refuse to acknowledge them as the clear-cut favorite because they don't defend. The Olay defense is cool in the regular season because of the pace of play and how many possessions you can get up. That's just not how you succeed in the playoffs. And nobody should know it better than their head coach, Steve Nash. I don't get how, after seeing how his career went with the 7 seconds or less Suns, that he's just like, hey, we're going to try this again with this group and hope for the best. Like, I don't care how much firepower you have. At the end of the day, you're going to have to get stops eventually. And this team has never shown that they can do that.
They just better hope that the Wizards don't win through the play-in tournament and have to face them, because that'll probably be a 6-7 game series, because Westbrook's going to look across the court at all those three of those guys and just be giving them just these looks of death. Like, I'm going to kill all of you for 6-7 games. I'm going to make you suffer. He's probably going to break somebody's ankles. They better hope and pray they don't get the Wizards.
That would be must-watch television of Russell Westbrook trying to get revenge on Kevin Durant and James Harden.
And James Harden, right? Exactly. It's both of them.
Like, it's a double whammy of, hey, I didn't forget either of you from OKC or just recently from Houston. Like, it's go time. He's going to be like frothing at the mouth before tip-off, before games.
Oh my goodness. I hope it happens, but Nets fans better pray that it doesn't happen.
It's going to be a battle of two teams that don't play defense. So who knows? It really could be a coin toss at that point.
Oh yeah. It'll go 6 games at least. I feel
no doubt. No doubt.
I'm not saying the Wizards are going to win. I'm just saying that Russell Westbrook is going to drive them nuts.
He's not going to go down easy.
Conversations. Those Zoom calls are going to be must watch.
For the outfits or for the conversation?
No, the conversation. I can totally see Durant and Harden just being miserable in those post-game Zoom calls, and Westbrook just throwing shade at everybody the entire series.
Without a doubt.
And by the way, don't forget, Mike D'Antoni's the coach on the Nets bench too.
I forgot about so much tea to be spilled in that series.
Too much. I want it now. I need it in my life. He's Kevin McCormick at Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter. Follow him for all your Sixers and NBA coverage. Sixers versus Heat tonight, 7:30 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN FM. And as all guests, Kevin appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Kevin, good to see you, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Sounds good, Josh. I'll talk to you later.
And, of course, our Sixers pregame coverage being brought to you by Trifecta Therapeutics in Glassboro, South Jersey's premier sports rehabilitation and physical therapy center, treating the pros and the Joes. Visit them online at trifectatherapeutics.com. All right, I see we got a couple messages coming in here, so we will get to what you guys had to say on the other side. We've talked some Sixers, we talked some Eagles throughout the show. Get your responses and some quick thoughts to wrap up the show coming up next year on Game Night. 609-403-0973 is text where we're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can comment on the live stream your thoughts as well. I'm Josh Hennig at Josh Hennig on Twitter. And don't forget about the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Get all of the alerts you want for the Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers. Just go and customize your app alerts. Get only the news that you want with the free 97.3 ESPN mobile app. thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Huge jam. A two-hand stop by Simmons. Knocks him out of the way.
The Sixers are on South Beach to face the Miami Heat. Tonight, coverage begins at 7:30. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
If you're struggling with alcohol or drugs, Recovery Centers of America can help. RCA's local inpatient and outpatient programs are founded on science and delivered with heart from an expert, caring team who will inspire and guide you every step of the way. Call 1-888-RECOVERY now to speak with a treatment advisor. At RCA, you'll be in a community that builds connections and fosters support from peers and RCA's team of medical professionals and recovery support specialists. At RCA's state-of-the-art campuses in Devon, PA and Mays Landing, New Jersey, they tailor your treatment to you and also offer specialized programs for patients with history of trauma, for patients who have achieved recovery but are experiencing a relapse, for young adults, adults 50 years and older, a confidential program for first responders and military, and a faith-based program. RCA answers the phone and accepts patients 24/7. And because it's local and in-network with insurance providers, treatment is affordable and accessible. Don't wait. Call 1-888-RECOVERY today.
All right, is that a Q2 or Q3 expense?
Dwayne's CPA went MIA.
W9.
To keep his books and his sanity, he needs to find a replacement ASAP.
Hey, Johnny, have you ever heard of a fungible good?
Indeed can help him hire the people he needs.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job, you immediately get your short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job criteria. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Have you wanted to speak a new language but thought it'd be too
When it comes to wings in the Delaware Valley, nobody beats the Piccalilli Inn. Enjoy ice-cold beer and their world-famous wings, tails, or ears on the Pick patio. Try new flavors like garlic parmesan, Jim Beam maple, or smoker. You'll see why people drive from all over for the Picks, world-famous wings and home-style favorites. Whether you're headed to or from the shore, for eat-in or take-out, make tonight the night. You visit the one, the only, the original Piccalilli Inn, Route 206, Chemung, New Jersey. For live music and specials, like them on Facebook.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Little breaking news for all of you guys out there. Got the word coming down. Joel Embiid is playing tonight. Word coming down that Joel Embiid, Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz are good to go versus the Miami Heat. Do we guarantee a Sixers win now? I don't know if I can guarantee it, but I feel pretty comfortable saying the Sixers are probably going to win this game now. The line is already moved. The Sixers were about a 3-point underdog. They're now down to a 1-point underdog in Miami. Now, just a little education for everybody out there. It's minus 110 for the Sixers at +1. So technically, what the odds makers are telling you, this is a pick'em game. Because usually, if you are an underdog on the number, that would be like a +110 or a +130 or no, it's a minus 110. So technically, this is a pick'em game. So the odds makers are telling you right now that the Sixers have a 50-50 shot to win this game. In fact, the odds are even tighter on the money line. Sixers are minus 102 on the money line. That is basically like decimal points above a 50-50 odds right there. So I think it's fair to say that we all can agree the Sixers are going to win this game tonight. So let's get all of your guys' thoughts and comments out there. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Plus, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Hodor the Horrific says Embiid is playing tonight. Let's clinch the number 1 seed with exclamation points. Listen, if Embiid's playing, I think it's fair to say the Sixers win. Now, I don't know how much they're going to win by. It might be an ugly game because Embiid hasn't played in a few days. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. I always say that winning is winning, right? So Embiid's back. It's going to be interesting to see. 7:30, 97.3 ESPN FM. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on your home in South Jersey for Sixers basketball. We also talked a little bit of Eagles earlier in the show. Douglas from Facebook. Now, I don't know if Douglas is serious or if he's just trolling a little bit, but Douglas's Eagles prediction is Eagles 4-12-1. First of all, I don't think there's ever, I'd look this up. Is there a team in NFL history that's ever had back-to-back seasons with a tie? I mean, that feels like the likelihood of that happening is like 1 in like 50 million or something like that. Like some crazy astronomical percentage. But I wanted to bring up Doug's comment because I think that a lot of people have this idea that the Eagles roster is a lot worse than it is. I think we forget that the Eagles lost 3 games solely because Carson Wentz was the worst quarterback in the NFL. He was statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL. He led the league in interceptions. He was among the worst in turnovers, not just interceptions, but turning the ball over in terms of fumbles last year. He had so many games where he played hero ball and he put the Eagles in horrible positions to win. Sorry, to lose. If you get even marginal quarterback play compared to last year, you're winning more than 4 games. You're winning at least 6. And as Adam Kaplan said earlier today, this schedule is a 7 to 8 win schedule. So I think Doug is either being extra negative or he's trolling. Now, we have a comment over there on YouTube. Thea says Douglas is trolling. I'm believing the Eagles are an 11-6 record this year. 11-6 is a little ambitious, but I appreciate the positivity. I think this is a 9-win team, personally. I think that if everybody's healthy and Jalen Hurts plays the way that I think he can, and Sirianni does what he's done in the past, so is Shane Steichen, this is a 9-win team. 9-8 is what I would go for. Let's get one more comment in here from you guys over on the text board. Texters, I agree, Josh. Sixers, Bucks, Eastern Conference Finals. I'm telling you, man, the Nets are fugazi. They're fraudulent. I will believe it till I see it. You know what I want to see? Sixers, do they win the number 1 seed? Find out tonight, 7:30, right here on 97.3 ESPN.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on 97.3 ESPN.
What's up, my people? We're back on Friday, and we put a wrap on week 1 of Market Madness. We're going to find out where Coach K, my coach, ranks among the biggest stars, plus the latest on the NBA play-in race and Aaron Rodgers. Friday morning, Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.